Welcome everyone to the June community class for Lawtrac. This community class we're going to focus on several areas of Lawtrac we found are generally underutilized, and we want to touch on those areas, talk about their benefit, and then teach you how to use them. As a reminder, if you have any questions during the webinar, please go ahead and type them into the Q&A and direct them to all panelists. That way, everyone on the CSA team that is also on the phone and you can see in the panelist list can address those questions as we go through the webinar, and then also we'll circle back to them at the end. Any questions that we may not be able to get to at the end of the webinar itself, we'll go ahead and reach out to you individually and speak with you about those questions. So on our agenda today, the areas that we are going to focus on within Lawtrac, first we're going to look at checklists, and then routing slips and front screen text. So we'll talk a lot about the purpose and the functionality of these areas, jump into Lawtrac and view them, how an end user would view them and how they would interact with these features, and then work in Lawtrac as an admin and then look at how an admin could configure these items, and specifically towards some example business cases that we've taken from other client experiences. And at the end, I also wanted to share a few Lawtrac updates with you, just to make sure that you guys are getting all of the communications that have been going out from Lawtrac. So we'll dive right into it. The first one I want to look at is checklists. So checklists, when you're in a matter, are located over here on the right-hand side, and there are several different views in which we'll explore later on. But these checklists really enable you to guide your users, standardize data, make sure that users are responding and entering information that's required with matters. And for instance, this employment matter screenshot I have here, you'll see that I've added some questions and some fields around discrimination types and qualified plan. And you'll note here on the welfare plan type, they only have a certain number of answer choices to choose from, and that's all configurable within Lawtrac. So it's really great to make sure that your users are entering the proper information and that they have the standardized answer choices. That way it's easily reportable in the future. Another thing that is great about checklists is that you can, as a user, send follow-up reminders to yourself to update these answers or fill them out in general, as well as a follow-up reminder to all of the assignees on the matter. So I'm going to jump to routing slips. We'll come back around and look at all of the end user and admin functionality after we first review just the purpose of each of these items. So routing slips are really good to make sure that you're streamlining any document or matter review within Lawtrac. So you can see here on this screenshot that you can put items through a routing approval track, and that way you consolidate all the information and comments that users put on routing slips, and they're also something you can audit. You can see who approved what items and when. The last one is front screen text. And this one, especially as we've seen clients upgrade to 4.0, a lot of clients don't realize that it's here. So we wanted to point this one out and let them know that this is something available to you. This is something super easily visible to users. It's located under this Announcements tab, and a lot of times they can deliver departmental news. You can post policies and expectations. I've seen it used to reiterate some security requirements, or if it's, you can also have instructions, and then I've also even seen it used to remind users to fill out matter information and completeness, so that way when the company reports on their matter information that they're getting really good reports back from the information that's entered into Lawtrac. Another thing with the announcements is you can search past announcements. So anything that's, been delivered and posted in the past is still available for users to search, and done so by this link here at the bottom. One thing I want to note is that the last 3 announcements will display, and the rest will go into the search past announcements category here at the link. And we'll look at this a little bit later, but these types of announcements can be really geared and tailored towards different user groups, those being the legal department, and then also the key personnel could have their own special announcements, and we'll look at how to configure that in our session about the admins. So right now we're going to jump into Lawtrac and look at some checklists. I have that employment matter here that I want to take us to. Oh, wrong one. Let me go back to the employment matter. On this employment matter, I want to take you to our checklist and so you can show you what these look like. So this is the Lawtrac view of the screenshot we saw earlier. With the checklist page, you have these views over here. So you have general listing, which gives you the general listing of the checklist. You can click into them, you can edit them, make changes. Here's where you would choose your answer, add any comments if needed, and then also replace the reminders on the calendar. Rapid entry is a great streamlined way to answer all the checklist questions all at once. You don't have the ability to add reminders or comments, but if that's not something your organization is using, the rapid entry is a great, quick, streamlined way to enter the information. And then the same, like the opposite, we have the detailed listing, and this opens up all of the checklist questions automatically so that you can see all of the detail all at once. So as the user, also notice that we have this classification specific section and the general question section. The classification specific are checklist questions tailored to individual matter types. So for instance, these 3 questions here will only show up on an employment matter. I can also configure questions for litigation matters, for instance, and those then will only show up for litigation. This really enables you to gear and make specific questions for each matter type. Sometimes it may not make sense to have like the question discrimination type on a contract matter, for instance, and so you really want to tailor it to the type of matter that you're filling out. We also have this section down here, general questions, and these are questions that can be placed on every matter type. So later when we configure some more questions, I'll show you which area you use to enter general questions that will appear on every single matter. So I'm going to pose to ourselves a business use case scenario, and then we'll go into Lawtrac and configure Lawtrac to help us solve this business use case. So as a company, we now have a new requirement where we want to create this standard process on all employment matters in which we have to, the users must answer a standard list of questions or attributes before an outside counsel can be assigned. And some examples I have here is required firm level, is the matter expected to exceed a certain number of hours, are there international regulations? So the purpose of creating these checklist questions is to make sure that the users are prompted for these answers and that when an assignee is going and assigning an outside counsel firm, we can use this information here they enter in the checklist questions to really make sure that the appropriate firm is assigned. So switching to admin mode, so now I'm going to be acting as if I am an admin in Lawtrac, and I'm going to create or configure those questions on employment matters so we can answer those and implement that change. So as an admin, I would go up to Application Administration, and here is where all of the configurations to the matter information, et cetera, will take place. And if we've done previous webinars on a lot of these capabilities, so if you have questions about these, we can meet with you about them and also send you some of our previous supplemental information and recordings as well. So let us know if you're interested in that. We're going to move to matter maintenance. And in the matter maintenance section, there's on item 15, there's a checklist maintenance area. And here is where you'll begin to configure all of these types. So when you first enter into checklist maintenance, you'll see that the first thing to appear are the general questions. So these are all of the questions and checklist items that will show to all matters since it's listed as general. You can edit this question and add more here. Here is where you'll add certain answers. So earlier when we had those questions about the qualified plan type, we only had certain answer choices available. So all of the answer choices that are needed for checklists are all entered in this centralized location. And then when we create our question, we'll choose what information or which answer choices the users are able to see and select from. Here is a usage report, so you can see which questions have been asked, what types of questions they were, and how many times they've been used. If questions have never been answered and used, those can be deleted. If not, they're not able to be deleted. So let's start adding some of our questions. I'm going to start first with entering in our answer choices. So for instance, I'm going to enter the required firm level answer choices. So we want them to be approved and preferred. And it looks like down here at the bottom, approved and preferred are there. So I'm just going to enter another one so that you see how this works. So it's fairly simple and straightforward, just entering the answer here, and then it also appears at the bottom of the list. Now we're going to enter in our specific questions. And I mentioned earlier that you can enter specific questions for matter types. And since this new policy is only on employment matters, I'm going to select the employment category here and list that. And you'll see all of our previously entered questions. And then we are now going to add our new questions. This button here is important to note because what this checkbox enables you to do is then add these new questions that you're entering onto already existing matters. And that's something that I want to do because I want to show you these new questions on the employment matter that we've already opened. So I'm going to click into required firm. And here is where you now choose, as an admin, choose which answer choices are available to your users. So I would like them to only be able to choose between preferred and approved. So those are the only ones I'm going to check. If none of these boxes are checked, all of them will show up. And save that. I'm going to add a couple more. I'm going to choose no and yes as the answer choices for is the matter expected to exceed 100 hours. And then we're going to add one more about international regulations. And also with the answer choices no and yes. So now that we've added that to our employment matters, let's look at our previously existing employment matter. Look at the checklist, and then you'll see here that the checklist or questions have now appeared. So if I wanted to answer all of these at once, I would go to Rapid Entry, select my appropriate answers, and the green dots here indicated that they have automatically saved, and now they are saved. If I wanted to, again, make comments on these, I could, as a user, make some comments in these comment boxes, and if I wanted to remind myself to follow up on any of these, I could send reminders here. So now we have our new implemented process with some help from Lawtrac. And as we go through these, I'm going to remind you that if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the Q&A, and we'll address those as we come to them. So now we're going to move on to routing slips. And for routing slips, I'm going to go back to that employment matter that we have been working with. Routing slips here are indicated and set up here at the top of the matter. If there is already an existing routing slip, you will be able to tell by this icon here. So as a user, I'm going to look at this routing slip to understand what I'm needing to approve. So I am logged into Lawtrac right now as myself, and right here it shows that I have a routing slip assigned to me. And this routing slip is a policy review on the matter record itself. As we spoke about previously, you can create routing slips on the matter record and also on the document. So as a user, going in to look at the routing slip assigned to me, I would click into my name, and here I would have options. First, I would read the instructions, understand what I'm approving or what I'm reviewing, and then I have a box for some comments, and I can choose to approve, reject, or place this routing slip on hold. I'm going to approve this item and update this routing slip. You can see that once I've approved the item, the status does change, and with the date, and now Rachel is tasked with reviewing the routing slip. So again, this is a great way to consolidate approvals of certain matters and then also documents. It keeps everything within Lawtrac, so that way all of the users can check the status of items. It's not distributed through everyone's email boxes. It's in a consolidated, audible, central location. As a user, there's also another way you can check how many routing slips you have. So as a user, I'm curious to see all the routing slips that I'm assigned to. So I'm going to go to People, In-House Legal Department. I'm going to find my user here, Melissa, and then I can see the routing slips option here, and I will check all of the routing slips I'm on and what the status is, the type of routing slip it is, and the matter and name of document if applicable. So now that we've, as a user, looked at how to approve routing slips, I'm going to pose another business use case scenario for us and talk about a reason why, as an admin, we'd like to start a routing slip, or as a user itself. So right now on this employment matter, I have created a document, and it's a new employee agreement, and I have the need to circulate this with a senior attorney and have them approve and sign off on this document. So I'm going to create a routing slip and show you guys how that process works. So I'm going to return back to our employment matter, click on routing slips, and this one's a document routing slip because we need to have the senior attorney review the document. And I would like them to review the employee agreement document. When we're creating a routing slip, we have 3 different options. You can send this slip to the individuals that are already assigned to the matter. So those that are on the matter will automatically get a notification and an email letting them know they're assigned to this routing slip. You can select a predefined review group, and this is a group of people that were previously set up in different groups to review routing slips. And a little bit later, I'll show you how to set those groups up. Or you can define your own group. In this case, I want to define my own group because I want to send it to my senior attorney who is not assigned on a matter. So my senior attorney, I'm going to assign it to Blair. If there's a need to assign multiple people, you can do so by clicking the control button and selecting them. You can add a description. One thing to point out is if you do not see the person that you're looking for in this drop-down, there is this option over here to list entire staff. And this will make a little bit more sense later when I show you the rights to routing slips. Essentially, the people that show here are the ones that have site access to routing slips. So if they don't have site access to routing slips, they will not automatically appear in this list. And we'll go through that site access in just a few. So I'm going to set this routing slip. If I needed to adjust the sequence, I could do so. Set the sequence, and then the routing slip will be created. You can see here that the routing slip is going to go to Monica and then Blair. So as the creator of this routing slip, I have a few more options. So earlier, as the user approving, if we recall, I could only approve, reject, or hold. So as the creator of this routing slip and anyone who's an admin in the system, they will have this edit button. And this edit button gives them a little bit more options. So what this enables them to do is edit any individual user's stop on the routing slip. They can make changes to it. They can also cancel the entire routing slip. They can make changes and resume, or they can make changes and restart the entire routing slip. So as the originator of the routing slip, you do have a few more options when it comes to the routing slip. So I'm going to change gears just a little bit and jump into, as an admin, how I would configure the predefined group and give people the rights to be assigned to routing slips. So first we'll start with the rights. We will check each individual user. So for instance, go to legal department. I'm going to go back to my user. And what you do as an admin, you can go into their site access. And to give them access to routing slips, they will need this icon to be toggled to green. If it's toggled to red, they're not going to be included in that routing slip option. Now I'm going to show you the predefined groups. So last month, I know we walked through creating predefined groups for matters, and that was done through matter maintenance. This predefined group is a little bit different in that it's done here through the legal department and only applies to routing slips. So if you click the routing slips option here on legal department, you'll see all of our predefined groups. Here you can edit or you can add a new group. I'm going to add a group here. And here's, you can now add certain people to this group. And it's easy as that. You can adjust the sequence if needed. And also edit previously configured groups. last but not least, we'll look at the front screen text. So the front screen text we discussed earlier is a great way to easily deliver information to the users in the system, and it can be differentiated to the legal department users or even in the key personnel users. To configure these messages, in Lawtrac, you go to Application Administration, then you'll go here to number 12, Front Screen Text. And when you enter front screen text, what you'll see is you'll see a list of all of the previously created messages and 3 links up at the top. So this is the entry page, which we're currently on. You can create more categories of messages. So these would be the instructions and general announcement of the categories, and then you can add a new one. So we're going to go through the process of adding the blood drive front screen text. So I would like to send this to the legal department, but note that if you want to change the audience to firms and vendors or key personnel, you can. And I'm going to choose the category as a general announcement. The title will be blood drive, and then here in the text is you would enter the details about that drive. Whenever it's complete, you create the entry, a message will appear that the new entry has been added. And if you want to go look at the front screen text, you click the Lawtrac Home button, and you'd be brought to the home page. Now that we've made it through our 3 underutilized areas, I'm going to just highlight a few tips and tricks, things that we spoke about previously, but I want to reiterate. The checklist, the rapid entry, so this is a great page to really enter that information quickly and effectively. On the routing slips, you can create these predefined groups for streamlined review to make sure that, especially if you have the same group of people that are required to review certain matter routing slips or document routing slips, you can streamline that process of adding them and making that tedious work a little bit more repeatable. And then lastly, I want to reiterate that the front screen text can be specifically tailored for different audiences through this drop down here. So I see a few questions coming in. Go ahead, and if you have any more questions, start typing them in. And while you guys are typing those questions in, I'm going to review some of our updates. The first update is we have a little bit more information about Interact. So there's a lot of agenda content on the website now. There's great sessions, actually, in particular with a lot of the legal ops organizations. There's one I know I'm especially excited about. It's one about how to choose and enhance your relationships with your outside counsel. I think that one's going to be a great one, with generate a lot of interest with our clients. Feel free to take a look at that agenda list. It's not a full list, but it has a lot of the sessions on the website for you. If you have any questions about that agenda list, you can contact Holly Chain, or you can email your CSA. We also have announced some of the evening events. So we'll have a welcome reception, we'll have a Miami Vice themed party, and then also Havana Nights themed party. So it's going to be a lot of great fun. I want to talk about our newsletter. So chances are, if you're on this webinar, you're getting our newsletter in some form or fashion. The newsletters are great because they will deliver information about product-specific webinars like this one. We'll usually have a tip of the month, an employee spotlight, any upcoming events like Interact, or for any ACC events, and then also support updates. I know our last newsletter had a support update letting all of our clients know that Update 7 was out, and so you can request Update 7 to be applied to your site. If you're not receiving these newsletters, please reach out to us and we can look to see why that is not the case and help you get access to these newsletters. Our tip and trick in the newsletter this month was about the Help and Support portal. So within Lawtrac, in Lawtrac 4.0 specifically, we made changes to the Help online tool. It's now accessible through the Lawtrac environment up here at the right-hand side. Once you click that, you have the ability to enter a support case, or you can even get the Lawtrac support documentation. The great thing about having the documentation in an online form is that as we make updates to it and as we edit the help, it automatically is pushed out to our client base, that way ensuring that you have the latest and greatest information about the Lawtrac user guides. Another thing I want to point out is that up here at the top right-hand corner of the help, there's a link to our Client Support Center and then contact information for Lawtrac. Okay, so I'm going to start addressing some of these questions. The first question is, can you add a person to a routing slip if they don't have the permission on their username? Yes, you can. You'll just need to click that list entire list up at the top, and I can take us back to that. So here with create routing slip, for instance, this entire stop, you will just need to click that option, and then you can add that person to the routing slip. The next question is, can you set front screen announcements to expire on a certain day? No, you cannot. The last three that are current are going to be the ones that display. The next question is there a limit on the number of approvers who can be included on a routing slip? No, there is not a limit. Another question about when approving a routing slip within a matter, does the user first get notified by email that they need to go into Lawtrac and review a routing slip for approval? Yes, a user will get an email notification that a routing slip is awaiting their approval. Well, we'll wait to see if there are any more questions coming in. And I don't see any. If we haven't addressed your questions, we'll reach out to you individually. And chances are there's a little bit more information we were looking for to make sure we complete and correctly answer your question. But other than that, thank you guys so much for joining. It's a pleasure having you on the meeting today, and look forward to a recording and supplemental information in your inbox within the next week. Thank you, guys.